He's the only human being that has gone through Hell Week in the SEALs 3 times. 3 times. He is the only human being who's also then, also done the Navy Tactical, that training, and Army Ranger training. The only human being to do all 3 of those. But what you don't know, and he's gonna share, anybody inside this room that felt their childhood growing up was rough, you got nothing on this cat. This guy lived in the worst possible situation, in the worst possible scenario, and he turned it all around. And he's gonna share everything about that and give you guys so much mental toughness. But I gotta give you a heads up, and I'm really talking to my live cast people right now. I swear sometimes, he's a military guy. He thinks that the F word is a noun, a verb, a pronoun, and it has 7,000 meanings. So if you're watching this on the live cast, whether it's live or in the future, and you're sitting with your children, this may be a moment to hit the pause button and ask them to leave the room. For the rest of you, you might want to turn your recording device on, because what you're about to hear is not for anybody else except for you. The next time you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you need a shot in the arm to remind yourself of how much more you have in you. You guys ready for something special? Ladies and gentlemen, some people call this guy the strongest man alive. Some people call him the toughest person alive. He runs marathons for fun, and usually not the little ones, the 100-mile marathons. And every day, he is in a battle, him against himself. Many of you won't know this name, but some of you will. But I want you to give them the biggest round of applause possible, because he is gonna deserve it, and you're gonna fucking love it afterwards. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend David Goggins.
How's everybody doing today? As you heard, I am not politically correct. Why is that? Because life was not fucking politically correct with me. So I had to get over a lot of shit in my life. I had to get over a lot of things on my own. And I have a question for you all right now. If you were to write a book about your life and hand it to somebody, would that book change their life? If not, you better get to fucking work. Because at 24 years old, the book I was writing wasn't gonna change anybody's life. So after I tell you my story, a lot of you don't know about me, I'm gonna kiss my ass a little bit and give my resume. But the whole thing about it is this: I'm not superhuman. I didn't have some special parents. I didn't go to a special school. Nothing. So please do me a favor, and after you hear me talk today and answer these questions, please don't put a title on me. And that title is trying to make yourself feel better by giving me a title that I'm talented or I have some gift to take pain or something like that. I'm gonna give you a story that takes all that away, and it's gonna make you realize that half of us in here aren't even shooting near hard enough or high enough. I have this thing called the 40% rule, because most of us in this room are only given about 40% of what you have. And I'm gonna be able to tell you about that here in a second. This was me right here. That's me at about 265 pounds. Is that superhuman to you? No. It's a big fat guy right there, looking lost, looking miserable. Held back in second grade. The reason I got held back in second grade, I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of backstory. I only have about 20, 25 minutes to talk about this, and then we'll get some questions. But basically what happened to me was I grew up in a horrible, horrible childhood. My dad was extremely abusive. Basically, he would beat me, my mom, my brother every single day. It was so bad for me growing up that my mom had to write letters to school. So, I couldn't participate in PE because I was so bruised up from getting beat up so bad growing up. The last thing that happened was my dad knocked my mom unconscious at the top of the stairs, drug her down the stairs. At the age of 6 years old, I got my first fight with the guy that was 210 pounds, and that was my father. So from 6 years old to 8 years old, this man continued to beat me because I continued to try to beat him because my mom was always getting beat. So the more I tried to beat him, the more he beat me, the more he defeated my soul. My dad literally took my soul as a young kid. So at 8 years old, we moved to a small town called Brazil, Indiana. Brazil, Indiana at the time was pretty much the headquarters of the KKK. As you all know, I'm not a white person. So basically, I went to a small town where I had zero self-esteem, had no soul, and this small town called me nigger every single day of my life. There was 10,000 people in this small town, and there was 3 black families, and we were one of those black families. So growing up, I want to give you 3 small instances right here that happened with me. I won't go through all of it right now because it'll take too long. One was I was in Pizza Hut with about 20 little white kids. This father came in. I was sitting by his daughter, and he came in front of all of Pizza Hut and said, "If I ever see you sitting by this nigger again, I'll kill you." That was one instance. The next instance was at 16 years old. I got my first car, and the kids sprayed, "Nigger, we're gonna kill you" on it. So the very last instance that really changed my life was I was in Spanish class, and at this time, my mom was working 3 jobs. We lived in a $7 a month place, government subsidized apartment, and we lived on food stamps, and that's kind of how we came up. So here I am, I hardly went to school. I cheated on every single test because when I was growing up, my dad owned a skating rink, and I started working that skating rink, and we didn't go to school. So in high school, I had a 4th grade reading level. So here I am, didn't go to school, would get beat up in school, but this instance right here really changed my life. I had a Spanish notebook, kept it in Spanish class. I walk in, I get it, I look at it, on the front of it, it had a noose with me hanging from a tree. "Nigger, we're gonna kill you." I took that Spanish notebook, left class, went to my principal, showed it to my principal, and the best advice I got in the whole time living in Brazil, Indiana, was they spelled nigger Niger. That's when you really fucking realize you're on your own. So my mom wasn't really around to handle these situations. She was the best mom on the planet for me because she worked her ass off, did what she could. She finally moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, where I finally am starting to get a little bit of, mentorship. She meets this guy. This guy was my mentor. The story continues to get bad. I come home from basketball practice. I walk in the garage. What do I see? I see a bunch of blood under a car. This guy got shot 5 times in his chest, 1 in his head. So my whole life, what I'm trying to do is build up a story for you all to realize we all have these excuses. And I'm trying to set a picture for you. How in the world do I end up on this stage today? So far, you've heard some of very little bit of my story. I was bullied my whole life, called every daggone name in the book, no mentorship, no father, my mom wasn't around, and this was my life, no education. So I decided to join the military. Trying to join the military, some health issues there, sickle cell. We'll get to the 106 pounds I lost in 2 months. We'll get to all that stuff here in a second. 2-hour surgeries, 53 diagnosed conditions. So we'll get to all that in a second. So here I am. I get out of high school, and I want to join the military. So I want to be Air Force pararescueman. Just to give you a little history about that, Air Force pararescueman, we jump out of airplanes and we save down pilots, okay? That's our job. I had no idea that special operations only had 1% African American, okay? So I'll get to this in a second. I was the 36th African American to become a Navy SEAL in 70 years. Thank you. So basically, out of 11,000 Navy SEALs in 70 years, there's only been 36 African Americans. I was one of them. But right now, I'm in the Air Force. Thank you very much. I appreciate that one clap. That was great. So I decided to go ahead and say, okay, I'm gonna join the military. Had to take the ASVAB test 3 times because I had no formal education. 4th grade reading level. I took it the first 2 times, and barely even scored anything on it. You had to get a 50 just to get into the Air Force. I scored a 20. So, not having any money, I got a tutor, $15 every time I saw her once a week. Long story short, I learned all of high school in 6 months, took the test, got an 81, got in. But this is when it got hard for me. When you get into special operations, they give you this warning order. The warning order explains to you exactly what you need to do to prepare to be in special operations training. Push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, all that stuff that I was really good at. Running and lap swimming. They didn't talk about how they try to drown your ass, okay? That was not in the warning order. So why there's not a lot of black people in special operations? Most of us are negative buoyant. Just to give you a little background, okay? What that means is my black ass gets in the water and I sink. Just in case you don't know what that means. So when you sink in the water, it's kind of hard to swim, all right? So that's why a lot of blacks don't choose that route. Just look at the Olympics in swimming. You won't see many doing it. So here I am now, very clueless about this whole special operations thing. But I'm thinking, I have no self-esteem. I started shaving my hair when I was 16 years old, and every time I look in that daggone mirror, that reflection was the pathetic man that blamed every single body for every single thing. Didn't have a dad, didn't have this, kids called me nigger. So I try to take accountability for myself, try to get accountability. So here I am now in the military, going through this training. We get down to last few weeks of training. I've struggled through it. I get down to the last 10 guys. Here I go again. The good Lord always liked to put me back at scratch. So I go get my medical appointment. I walk in. I'm kind of getting some pride, a little bit of dignity. My head's up. I walk in. They draw my blood. Once again, people, long story short, I'm going to say that a lot because this story could take a long time. I have sickle cell. Sickle cell is a blood disease that if you have it, you cannot be in special operations, okay? So they kicked me out. I was halfway happy they kicked me out because I was terrified of the water. I didn't want to get in that pool ever again. So what happened to me was I decided to get out and join this job called TACP. TACP is where you go overseas and you go behind enemy lines and you control fast movers. These fast movers blow up enemy territory, and that's what I did. There was no water involved, but it was still a special operations job. So I ran away from my fear. My fear was water, so I ran away from it. So here I am now. 4 years later, I get out of the Air Force. In that 4-year time frame, I went from 175 to 300 pounds. So that picture you saw of me up there, I was about 265. So add about 35 more pounds of that, and that's what you get with me. So here I am, no education, hardly any at all, and I start working for this job called Ecolab. Ecolab's where you spray for cockroaches, okay, people? In your back, from 11 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning, I would go to Old Country Buffet, stuff like that, and spray for cockroaches. That's what I did. So this one night, I'm in Steak and Shake. I get in there, spray Steak and Shake down, get a large chocolate milkshake, and I go across the street to 7-Eleven and get a box of mini donuts. And when I get home, I turn on the Discovery Channel, and I'm watching these guys going through Navy SEAL training. And at that time, I felt so small and pathetic, and everything that everybody had said about me was coming true in my brain. You're never gonna be anything, you're this, you're that. I was worthless, and they're right, I was. I was spraying for cockroaches at nighttime, making $1,100 a month, and that's what I did. So I said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm gonna go be a Navy SEAL and conquer these daggone demons. But this is when the story gets crazy. Who on earth is 300 daggone pounds, can't swim that well, wants to be a Navy SEAL? Obviously, I didn't get too educated, people. So here I am, I go to 11 recruiters. Every single recruiter laughed in my face, but the 12th one. The 12th one looked at me smirked a little bit, smiled, brought some people in to make fun of me. That was fine. He said two things that will stick in my head forever. He goes, why the hell do you want to be a Navy SEAL? You're fat and you're black. He was very observant. So here I am. I'm in this recruiter's office, and that's what's going on. So I'm looking at him, he's looking at me. He starts to humor me and says, let me see if we can even get you in the military. I was 24 years of age in 4 months. That's an important age. I was prior service in the special program I was trying to get into. You can only be 24 years of age in 6 months. I had 60 days to lose 106 pounds. I said, you're fucking crazy. I'm going back to Ecolab. So I'm back here in the back of this kitchen spraying for cockroaches. And guess what I found? The money spot. The money spot is in the back of these kitchens. You have these holes back here in the back of kitchens. I had a brownie in my hand, and I was spraying for cockroaches, looking around, looking down. And one thing I can't stand is cockroaches. All right? Crazy. Only job that would take me was Ecolab, so I sprayed for cockroaches. That's what I had to do. That's what I did. Spraying for cockroaches back here. Never found the money spot. Lo and behold, the good Lord was talking to me again. Merry Christmas, David Goggins. Cockroaches are all over me. I found the money spot. Like any smart man or woman would do, I got my canister, put it to the side, put my Ecolab hat off, and quit my job. But now, this is the thing. I only have 59 days to lose 106 pounds. So, Jenny Craig would not have approved of it, but this is when my mentality started to change, big time. This is when I started to really change my mentality. Whenever I was sitting down, I felt guilty. Whenever I felt like I wasn't doing enough, I moved more. I started realizing that I can do this. I lost a pound, lost 2 pounds, lost 3 pounds, lost 4 pounds, lost 5 pounds, lost 106 pounds. Went back to the recruiter, said, hey, I want to be a fucking Navy SEAL. He looked at me, thank you. I'm sorry I'm going quick through this. This story is real long, and we got some stuff to do. So here I am now. I get in. But all I did was I trained a faster, leaner, smarter quitter. I never worked on this. I never worked on this. My mental toughness was not getting built up. I still felt sorry for myself when times got hard. Why did I know that? I went through 3 hell weeks in 1 year. I'm the only person in SEAL history that's ever done that. I won't get deep into that story, but I'll tell you how it happened a little bit. Hell Week is 130 hours of continuous training. You might get 2 hours of sleep. It's the 5th week of SEAL training, and then after that, you have 21 more weeks to get your ass kicked. Everybody think Hell Week is like the last week and you graduate. No. It's the worst week, but it's not the last week. So the first 4 weeks are called Hell Month. At least that's what I called that. So I get to the 5th week. Hell Week starts on Sunday, ends on Friday. I get to Wednesday. I had a ruptured hernia and double pneumonia. I was so happy that they got me out of SEAL training because I was about to quit. All that insecurity and all that stuff, it kept on coming back. Every time things got hard for me, those insecurities kept on roosting in my head. Every time. I'll never forget, it's the first hour of Hell Week, and that cold water went over my head, and I thought I went from Sunday to Friday. If you let your mind get away from you that fast, you're done. You have to make this big thing very small. I didn't know how to do that. I just said, oh my God, I'm the coldest I've been in my life. I freaked out, I panicked, and I left. It's called the 1-second decision. When times get bad in your life, and you start to panic and you quit, but after you quit, guess what happens? Your brain calms down and you hate yourself. So the Navy SEALs actually did me a favor. They sent me home for 30 days to get better. In that time frame, I realized I was still a pathetic man in my brain. How am I going to be able to get through the hardest training in the world, and I'm the weakest man that God ever created? How am I going to do this? I figured it out. I was watching Rocky. Rocky 1, round 14. The song I came out to, I had the Guinness Book of World Records for the most pull-ups in 24 hours. I did 4,030 in 17. Thank you. But I failed twice before I got it. So for 17 hours, I listened to one song, and that song is what I came out to. It's 2 minutes and 14 seconds long is that song. I had it on repeat for 17 hours. I know you're thinking, this guy's crazy. No, I'm not. Why I did it was I had to develop a mental picture in my mind that kept me going when I felt like shit. And I started going back to the demons of being called everything that I didn't like to be called. And that mental picture was, if you go back to that Rocky 1, you will see when Apollo's beating the hell out of Rocky. The 14th round, Rocky falls down in his corner, and Mickey's saying, stay down. Apollo Creed thinks he won the fight. He turns around with his hands up. He's happy as hell. When he turns back over to Rocky, he sees this guy getting up. Apollo Creed's face looked like somebody had taken his soul. So what I decided to do was everybody that was against me was Apollo Creed. And I wanted everybody to have that face of how the fuck did David Goggins make it? That was my motivation. I wanted everybody who thought I couldn't make it see me excel and make it. So that face was it. So, thank you. So I get through the second Hell Week. I graduate that Hell Week. I'm moving on, getting ready to go to second phase, which is die phase. There's about 15 of us, and I'm happy again. Here I am. Guess what? I broke my leg. Started day 1, week 1. But at this time now, versus feeling sorry for myself, I'm like, yeah, who in the fuck has gone through 3 Hell Weeks? Versus saying, oh man, I got poopy pants, I gotta go through Hell Week again, this sucks. No, I was like, bring it on, because now I'm gonna be a legend. I started telling myself different things. So, third Hell Week, it was a bad Hell Week. Somebody died in that Hell Week, but David Goggins made it through, and he graduated Navy SEAL training. Thank you. So, I've skipped over a lot of stuff, but the guy that had nothing made something of himself. I'm gonna give you about 2 minutes of how I became the Black Forrest Gump. So basically what happened was I gained all that weight back after I became a Navy SEAL. I went to about 260 pounds. My first deployment overseas, I was a prime minister's bodyguard. So this skinny guy in front of you is not real intimidating. A 260-pound guy with an afro and a 60 cal in his hand, pretty intimidating. That's what I was, that's what I became, that's what I had to be. So I did that. Some of you are familiar with the Marcus Luttrell story, Lone Survivor. I went through 3 Hell Weeks, so I knew everybody in SEAL training history almost. I was there forever. So basically, on that operation that Marcus Luttrell was the only survivor on, everybody died. I knew all those guys that died, so it touched me. I was at free fall school with Marcus Luttrell's twin brother, who's also a SEAL. I was the person that gave Marcus Luttrell's twin brother the bad news that Marcus might be dead. I'm gonna say long story short again, because why? We'd be here for a while. So basically, I tell Marcus or Morgan that Marcus might be dead. They're identical twins. Morgan looked at me and said, Marcus is alive. I said, I think you're smoking crack, dude. I think he's dead. He goes, guess what? We'll see. 4 days later, Marcus Luttrell was alive. They found him. It touched my soul so deeply that I was like, hey, I have to find a way to raise money for these kids that, their fathers are dead. So I found a foundation, but now I have to find something to do to raise money for these people. So me being the smart guy that I am, weighing 260 pounds, I Googled the 10 hardest races in the world. And guess what they were? The first one was Badwater 135. 135-mile race through Death Valley in the summertime. Now, people, I thought this was a stage race. I called the race director up and said, hey, I'm a Navy SEAL. I'm going to raise money for these guys who died in this war. He goes, great, are you an ultra runner? Have you run 100 miles? I said, in a calendar year? He said, no, at one time, 24 hours or less. You have to do that to qualify for the Badwater. I'm like, you mean to tell me that people actually do that at one time? I thought the Badwater was a stage race where you ran 20 miles, set up camp, had a barbecue, cooked out, and then ran some more. He said, no, it's not. He said, basically, the top 90 ultra runners get in this race. You are not that. You're right, I'm not. I called him up on a Wednesday. That Saturday, there was a race I could qualify. There was 2 races left before the application process was due. So I said, roger that. That Saturday, I was at the San Diego one day where you run around a 1-mile track for 24 hours to see how many miles you can get. Had a blue lawn chair, Ritz crackers and Mileplex, 260 pounds, and hadn't put running shoes on in over a year. And the first I ever run in my life was 20 miles. I get to the first 50 miles, my body felt pretty good. At 51, it felt like shit. So now, I get to mile 70. Sorry I'm going so fast through this, but we got some more to do. I get to mile 70, I sit down in this blue lawn chair, and when you drink Mileplex and have Ritz crackers, your nutrition is really bad, really bad. So my blood pressure was really bad. And so I had to go to the bathroom, and literally it's from me to this table right here. It was 15 feet. I tried to stand up. At the time I was married. She's now my ex-wife. This is probably why she left me. I sit down. I look at her. I'm trying to get up. I can't stand up. This goes on for about 5 minutes. I said, fuck it. I can't stand up. Honey, do you love me? Yeah, why? Because I'm going to take a shit on myself right now. Can't make this stuff up, people. I'm sorry. You pay for good stuff. I'm giving it to you right now. So that's what happens. I'm going to the bathroom myself. I start to pee blood. And there's one thing a black person does not want to hear. My ex-wife looked at me and said, you're starting to turn white. I didn't want to hear that shit. So that means I'm pretty jacked up right now. My body's messed up. I'm messed up. Things are messed up. Things are going south. But there's one thing I realized in my life is that if your mind gets away from you and you can't draw it back in, you lose. So instead of panicking and losing my mind like I always used to as a kid and making these big things become even bigger and small things become big, I said, okay, I have 30 miles to go, about 11 hours to get it in. I can't stand up. So make big things small is what I'm trying to get to. I got to be able to stand up to be able to go 30 more miles. I got nutrition, got hydration, got electrolytes, got moving, got up, started moving again. Once again, people, I'm going to say it again. Long story short, I got that done in 18 hours, 56 minutes. I won't tell you how it ended. It ended poorly. I went on, called the race director up at Badwater. The race director said, hey, I heard how bad off you are. The ultra race community is very small. I heard how horrible you were. There was one more race I could do called the Hurt 100 to prove to this guy I wanted in this daggone race. The Hurt 100 is 100 miles with 28,000 feet of climbing, and only 26 people had ever completed it at that time. I went there with broken feet because my feet were broken in that race. Was the 27th person to ever complete that race. Went on to do the Badwater, got 5th place my first year, 3rd place my second year. As I told you about the Guinness Book of World Records, ran 7,000 miles in 2007, broke the record for the most miles run in 39 hours. I ran 205 miles in 39 hours. Just so you all know, everything I told you right now has nothing to do with running or being a SEAL or being an Army Ranger, went through Delta Force, all this crap. Has nothing to do with any of that. It has something to do with the mindset of a person who wants to be the best. That's all it is. That's all it is. If you think you're working hard, you're not working hard enough. The person that should be up here, you guys should never know who I am. I was a fat, 300-pound black guy with no education. How do I get to this stage to talk to you all today? Because I fucking wanted it. That's it. If you woke up at 4 o'clock, I woke up at 2 o'clock. If you did 100 miles, I did 200 miles. I had to beat whoever was in front of me. No matter who it was, I had to beat them versus them beating me. Wake up in the morning time and win the battle against yourself. Don't let life get to you and give you poopy pants. I'm gonna end on this. I did everything I talked about with a hole in my heart, they say the size of a poker chip. I've had 2 heart surgeries in the last 7 years. So I didn't get deep into it because I didn't have time. When I went through SEAL training, every night I would fill a 32-ounce Gatorade bottle with big brown hawkers because when I would sleep, the blood would pool from my heart into my lungs and I lived with pulmonary edema. So my lung capacity was nil. And that's how I went through life. That's how I went through stuff. So basically, if you think that you've given everything, you really haven't. You have a lot more to give. And guess what? If you have an excuse about my mom wasn't there, my dad wasn't there, I got bullied in school, I was fat, I wasn't the smartest guy in the world, don't want to hear it. I had it myself. So get over it. No excuses. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. We have a number of events coming up and we'd love to have you there. Visit tomferry.com/events and reserve your spot today.